Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show. Another week, another Hog Hoops report. Jacob Morris joined as always by Kevin McPherson. And Kevin, you ended last week's show by saying, I just need something concrete. I'm tired of speculation. I just want some news. You got it in the form of 3 commitments. We're going to go through all 3 of the now signees one by one. And we'll start with Carter Knox, a McDonald's All-American. That's going to be a theme. He signs with Cal and the Hogs and kind of got this whole thing kicked off. And consensus top 30 guy, really impressive get right off the bat for Cal.
Yeah, 5-star. McDonald's All-American, composite national number 22. So checks in as a 5-star in the composite rankings. You know, every service out there has him in the top 25. And, you know, at 6'6", he's one of those alpha scorers, over 23 points per game at overtime elite last year, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Shooting around 34% from 3 on volume, you know, multiple 30-plus point games. This is the kind of scorer that you've seen Calipari over the years have success with. We talk about big men, but in the backcourt, he could be that next guy when you look at the playing the 2 or the 3, 6'6" strong. I mean, 220-plus pounds. So this is not a slide-to-build guy or a lanky guy. Put together well. Carter Knox off the board on Monday. Big Z was getting lonely up there. He and Blake Lawson were having to, you know, I don't know how they were doing. They didn't even have enough to run a 3-man weave in practice. Not that they're practicing, but you get it. So you had Carter Knox making some noise on Monday, and then the information cycle on Tuesday really picked up when we learned that Boogie Flam was coming in for a visit. Same with Billy Richmond. Other things started to come out. And then on Wednesday night, you had Boogie Flan, another 5-star, another McDonald's All-American. ESPN has him ranked 15th in that class of 2024. And remember, Knox and Flan were both on board with Kentucky, as was Billy Richmond, a 6'6" small forward wing, Flan a 6'2" guard. But Richmond, composite national number 25, a 5-star. So each individual service has him ranked in that 20 to 25-ish range. Some close, I think 1 or 2, maybe a little lower than that. So 4-star, but when you added up the composite, his aggregate brings him in at 25, a 5-star. Both of those guys arrived on Wednesday night. On Thursday evening, so basically 24 hours after the visit began on Boogie Flan, we learned of his commitment Thursday night. Then Friday morning, we've been getting these late afternoon, early evening commitments on the first 3 with Big Z, Carter Knox, and Boogie Flan. But it was Friday morning when Billy Richmond's commitment came over. So lo and behold, Jacob, we've got 5 Razorback. They could play the Globetrotters tomorrow. No bench help. Anybody that wants it, because you've got Big Z at 7'2". You've got a small forward wing. So Big Z can play the 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
You've got Billy Richmond, small forward wing. You got Carter Knox, shooting guard wing. You've got Boogie Flan, combo guard, so he can play the 1. And then you've got Lawson Blake, your 6'10" center, a walk-on, who was holding down the fort for a while with no scholarship players. So you got 5 guys that can go roll it. I love Boogie Flan, by the way. I talked about Carter Knox's game. Flan nearly 20 points per game. In New York, playing in New York City prep basketball at Archbishop Stepanak, over 6.5 rebounds per game at 6'2", 3 or so assists per game, 2.5 steals, but really did well in McDonald's All-American game. When you look at his averages, combining that, the Nike Hoop Summit, and the Jordan Brand Classic, average double-figure scoring, shot decently from 3. But a guy that can facilitate, set your table, but really he's a scoring point guard, has some stuff in his bag that reminds me a little bit of Kyrie Irving. Don't want to overstep things, as Kyrie Irving's on his own planet when it comes to undersized guards that can go and just, kind of fool your eyes by making spectacular finishes. Boogie Flan's got a little bit of that. When I look at Billy Richmond, I see a slasher at 6'6", very athletic. Projects to me as a plus, if not elite defender, as he progresses and develops. But another sturdy build at 6'6", a vicious slasher and rim hunter. He's a lefty, so he likes to drive and get into a little pull-up mid-range game. Still emerging as a three-point shooter, made 24 threes last year in 30 games playing at Camden High School in New Jersey. So those were your 3 names to join Big Z. And then we need to talk about some of these weekend visitors as well, because Arkansas may be adding some more names to that commitment list.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I wanted to say on Richmond, he's got a family connection too, which is fun. He's Billy Richmond III, and Billy Richmond Jr. played for Cal at Memphis from '02 to '04, so that's fun as well. But yeah, let's talk visitors because, Arkansas might be able to field 5 right now, but Kevin, the goal is to have 12 guys that have scholarships on that team. So talk me through some of the visitors that Arkansas's got coming this weekend and how Cal can hopefully keep this thing rolling.
Well, we know Big Z, Zvonimir Ivisic, was the first frontliner on the commitment coming from Kentucky after 15 games as a freshman. Arkansas, when you look at the weekend visitors, one yesterday, one today, that started around 2 o'clock, so just a few minutes ago as we tape this. But we're back to the front line, and we're talking about all SEC second team, SEC all defensive team a year ago for the SEC regular season champs, Tennessee Vols, and an eventual Elite Eight team. Jonas Adu, 6'11" guy that really, really came into his own as a junior. I don't know that anyone projected him to have the season he did based on his previous work there with the Vols. But over, just 25 minutes per game, over 11 points, over 7 rebounds, nearly 2 blocks per game, 51.5% field goal shooting. He was due in on Saturday for a visit to Arkansas. He's already visited Baylor, may take a visit to North Carolina. Also has Alabama in his Final Four along with the Hogs. But, going back to that Baylor visit last weekend, the Arkansas visit this weekend, this is not your typical visitor. There's no Instagram post of photos or I'm here. It's on social media. You don't see any photos of him out and about at baseball games or softball games. I've seen nothing emerge for him like that. With most recruits, it works differently. There's a splash on social media during these visits. So I find that interesting, number one. Number two is maybe he doesn't want all that fanfare. He's maybe a more serious guy. I don't know what his motives are. And I do find it interesting. So proof of concept that he's on the visit. There was some random tweeter from the state of Tennessee that was on a flight going to Northwest to XNA in Northwest Arkansas there, and said Adu was on the flight. So at least, if I trust that guy, that's about as much as I've gotten, other than a few random tweets that people say they saw him at the baseball game. The second one where Calipari threw out the first pitch. I've got no media member or anyone else. I've seen no photos. Typically, those things emerge. Fans take pictures when they see recruits on campus and put them on social media. So I don't want to make too much of a big deal of that, but it's kind of quiet on how his recruitment's going, other than we've learned the 4 schools. And you hear Baylor may be in the lead, but if you get him on campus and it's John Calipari, in my opinion, the greatest recruiter of all time, it gives Arkansas better than a heavyweight big puncher's chance at a knockout. Arkansas can maybe find a way to land Jonas Adu. And I think John Calipari goes into this weekend with 2 big men. The other one, Brandon Garrison, the 2023 McDonald's All-American freshman at Oklahoma State last year, doesn't have the resume that Adu had, but a more veteran guy to do. But I think Calipari came into the weekend thinking he could get both of these guys. That's how strong a recruiter is. I have thought it's probably one or the other. We'll see. But Garrison, 6'11" center, Oklahoma native, Del City, right there in the state. And then he played for Oklahoma State and Stillwater as a freshman, 7.5 points, 5.3 rebounds, 1.5 blocks per game. Started most of the games last year as a freshman. Again, a 2023 McDonald's All-American. And with Kenny Payne on board, I was told he was arriving late in the week to Fayetteville. With him in town and in concert with Calipari, the work they did, not only featuring big men, developing big men, but getting them off to the NBA and lottery. And then you look at some of these guys, some of the best players in the NBA right now, and you look at Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, and so many others. There is a big resume there from the coaching standpoint of selling these guys on why they should be Razorbacks. So I think Arkansas lands at least one of these guys. I'll be surprised if it's not one or the other. And I think Calipari was prepared to get both. And they can sell them on how they can make that work, because they've done it before with high-level guys, more than just one playing on the same team, playing at the same time, and getting them ready for the NBA. So I think you pay attention to both of these visitors coming out of the weekend. Do we see any commits drop today? It's Sunday already. Or does it, spill into Monday or Tuesday, or when it comes off the board? But Brandon Garrison's already taken visits to Oklahoma and Texas. It's thought that he was maybe considering a visit to Kentucky, but Arkansas's got him as of 2:00 today. So we'll see where it goes with Adu and Garrison. But again, with 4 guys committed, we went through it, 3 already this week It's already been a busy week when you add those together with these two big man visits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's encouraging from a different standpoint also. I think if there were any questions Arkansas fans had, maybe they just heard a lot of noise from Kentucky fans. It was, hey, is Cal truly going to embrace the portal enough to make this thing work? We know he can get it done in high school. He's done that for a while. And right here's two great examples of it, guys that are going to really bolster the front line for the Razorbacks and could potentially help a team next year. But shifting back to high school, where we know Cal gets it done, couple class of 25 guys you wanted to talk about. What are you hearing in terms of Arkansas in the high school ranks past just this year?
Yeah, Darius Acuff, a 6'2 guard, point guard in the class of 2025, a national top 10 5-star rated guy, is planning to take a visit to Arkansas on May 10th. So coming up really quickly, you're going to have a visitor from that 2025 class. Again, just picked up an Arkansas offer over the past week. Calipari and his staff, some of those remain cloaked in darkness for now since we don't have an official announcement other than Kenny Payne. But offers went out to at least 4 top 10 guys. And when you look at Darius Acuff, again, a point guard, he's at IMG Academy by way of Detroit, but a very talented player and a guy that, again, has already got that hog offer and has already announced that he's coming on for a visit. Malik Thomas, another guard, 6'4 guard. I believe he's out of Pittsburgh. I think Lincoln Park High School, another top 10 rated 5-star of that 2025 class. Is Arkansas is one of the schools he's talking about, one of 3 schools upcoming that he plans to visit. See, 2 of the guys that picked up offers last week out of the 4, Arkansas also offered A.J. DeMonsa, a 6'9 wing combo forward who is the number 1 player in class. You look at the composite, I think it's pretty much unanimous. He's the number 1 player in the country. 5-star, picked up an Arkansas offer. Caleb Wilson, the 4th-ranked player, 6'8 power forward, 4th-ranked in that class of 2025, so another 5-star, also picked up an Arkansas offer. Will Riley, a 6'9 forward, has Arkansas in his final 5 schools. Arkansas wasn't even in his top 10 that was put out a few weeks ago. Now he's narrowed it to a top 5, and because Calipari's at Arkansas, he has got Arkansas in his final 5. So we'll see if he schedules a visit. I would think if he's getting it down to 5, either it's window dressing or he does plan to take a visit. We need to learn about that. So that's kind of some updates there. Now, Arkansas is loaded in both the 2025 and 2026 classes. And I won't go through all the names. We do that a lot, but I will say that the coaching staff has started to make initial outreach, initial contact with some of the in-state guys. I get a lot of questions about that. And some of that stuff's already begun. So we know that this staff has got to be focused on, right, filling out this roster, taking care of the next season. And they're doing it with quality so far. I think that's going to continue. But you have to be busy, cast that wide net, and stick to recruiting at all levels. The next class, 2025. The class after that, 2026. Calipari does it better than anybody. These offers don't surprise me. The outreach doesn't surprise me. And already we're hearing about visitors coming in. The first one, a top 10 rated 5-star in just a couple of weeks, May 10th, and Darius Acuff Jr.
Yeah, it's impressive. And, you knew, right, obviously, Cal, with the recruiting chops he has, that this was going to happen. But it was still, man, when I opened up Twitter and you see the number 1 overall player in the class of 25, you said it pretty much unanimous. You go down the list, Rivals on 3, pick your service. He's there. And there's the Arkansas offer. You knew he'd hit the ground running, but it's great to see Cal do so. But wrapping up, let's talk a little Pro Hogs NBA playoff times, or NBA playoffs time, I should say. And Pro Hogs playing a role as they have all season.
They are. And I want to go back to Calipari on this point.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. Nick Smith Jr. was in Fayetteville for a couple of days, was in the Performance Center and took photos with Calipari. Calipari tweeted that out. And I think that's part of your brand. There's a guy that doesn't have to build a brand. He just keeps reinforcing it. So he's sending out that message. Here we are, NBA playoff times. Pro Hog in the house. I'm told Nick Smith Jr., I think the game tipped a few minutes ago. Dallas Mavericks, a game 4 against the Clippers. I'm told he's in Dallas today to attend that game, Nick Smith Jr. But having said that, going through these playoffs, Bobby Portis and the Bucks are not doing real well against the Pacers, a team they struggled with in the regular season. And you've got Giannis, the Greek Freak, who's not played a single game. Now you've got Dame Lillard out for today's game, got injured in the last game, played on a gimpy foot, Achilles injury. finishing that last game. And so the Bucks are down 2-1 in that series. Game 4 is tonight in Indianapolis. But Portis averaging 15.3 points and 13.3 rebounds in a starting role in place of Giannis. So he's averaging a mega double-double there, trying to do what he can. The Bucks, lost in overtime in this last game. So it's going to be a lot tougher without Dame Lillard and Giannis. But you look at Isaiah Joe, just over 6 points per game. The Thunder are up 3-0 in their series against the New Orleans Pelicans, shooting 50% overall from the field, 50% from three, a couple of rebounds, and a combined box plus 25 through those 3 games. He's one of the best box plus minus guys in the NBA. Very efficient player, great team player, underrated defender, Isaiah Joe. Jalen Williams has played in all 3 playoff games in a backup role, but both of those guys come off the bench, both former Hogs. But Jalen Williams has also been knocking down threes at a clip of 50% and averaging almost 4 points per game in these 3 games. Both he and Isaiah Joe are good at taking charges, drawing offensive fouls. We've seen some of that from those guys in these playoffs. Dan Gafford off to a slow start in the first 2 games of the Clipper series on the road in LA, but Dallas won the second game, won the third game at home day before yesterday, and Gafford picked it up with 8 points on 4 or 5 field goal shooting, 4 rebounds, 3 blocks, a monster block on Paul George at the rim. That kind of went viral, but we know he's one of the top shot blockers in the league. But had a really good game. Box score +9 in that Dallas 101-90 Dallas win a couple of days ago. Again, the Mavs are playing now against the Clippers in Game 4 at home in Dallas. You look at Anthony Black. That's an interesting series with Orlando and Cleveland, the 4-5 matchup. Cleveland blew out, basically won 2 runaway games at home. Orlando did the same thing, blowout wins at home in games 3 and 4. Gave Anthony Black a chance to get playing time in those 2 blowout home wins, but a total of 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal for AB, shooting around 43%. Is limited, got 11 minutes combined there, but it's a pro hog rookie playing in the NBA playoffs. He's already getting that experience. We haven't seen Ricky Council with the Sixers or Jordan Walsh with the Celtics yet get off the bench and check into a playoff game. But Patrick Beverly with the Bucks and Bobby Portis, 7 points, over 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal and a block per game. He always checks every box. At 6'1", he does a little bit of everything for you. Just a menace out there. But you got a total of, again, 8 pro hogs in these NBA playoffs, so you got to talk about them. And again, Bobby Portis was a finalist, by the way, for NBA Sixth Man of the Year. Second year in a row, he's one of the 3 finalists. Second year in a row, he did not win that. He has been by far the best reserve 6 man in the NBA spanning the past 4 seasons. For whatever reason, he can't thread the needle and win that award. He's consistently the best guy. I find that a little bit interesting. I'm not going to go conspiracy theories just yet. But again, back-to-back seasons where he was in that he was a finalist.
Yeah, good to see. It's like you said, right? When you're talking about NBA playoffs, the most important time in the NBA season, it's great to see those guys continue to make an impact, especially the rookies. Even if it's just time off the bench, you're still talking about a guy in his first year playing minutes in an NBA playoff series. Anything else you want to hit before we go, Kevin?
Not really, other than Razorback basketball has a pulse beyond just the shockwave of hiring John Calipari.
We're back.
And we knew this was coming. The tsunami was just, the weather predictors were off a little bit. It didn't happen as early as it was meant to be. So he does things on his pace. And so far, I'm just very impressed with his cachet and his brand, because anybody that thought Big Blue Nation was going to hold on to any of these guys that Calipari wanted, they're kidding themselves. Those guys are now, some of these guys are Razorbacks. I think there'll be more from the Kentucky portal who'll end up being Hogs, by the way.
Should be interesting to watch moving forward. But that's going to do it for this week's Hog Hoops Report. Kevin and I will talk to you next week. More Pig Trail Show coming up after the break.